This airport is just one of nearly 20,000 across the United States. From tiny rural airstrips to sprawling international hubs like LAX and Atlanta, America didn't just build airports. It built the largest and most complex aviation network the world has ever seen.
I'm standing out here in northern Montana, surrounded by towering mountain peaks, winding rivers, and more grizzly bears and wildlife than people. I've come out here for three main reasons. First, to show you the beauty of untamed places like this, but also to chase a story that begins with forgotten runways and airports, and why the US government built exactly 19,662 of them.
Now for context, that's more than all of the Starbucks or McDonald's locations in America, and several times more than the airports in China, despite having a much smaller population. In fact, the US is home to nearly half of all the airports on Earth. So the real question is, why? The answer goes far beyond travel. These airports became a key to understanding how America became a global superpower and why the government needed to invest in such remote areas.
The story of America's airports begins not with passenger jets or first-class lounges, but with mail.
Now imagine a world that prior to 1918, sending a letter across the country could take weeks, even months. In order to find a solution, the US Post Office bravely, and perhaps even a little recklessly, established the first regular airmail route between Washington, D.C. and New York. But there was a really big problem. There were no airport runways to land on, at least as we know of them. Pilots were essentially landing wherever they could find a reasonably flat patch of ground, a farmer's field, or a dusty plain. Navigation relied on a little more than guesswork. You see, back before there were satellites orbiting Earth, GPS in those days stood for guess, pray, survive. But the government quickly realized that if airmail and the future of aviation was to be viable, a proper infrastructure was essential. So, in the early 1920s, the airmail service began to construct simple landing strips. These were often just long, graded grassy fields, maybe with a basic hangar. But these humble beginnings were all it took to revolutionize a whole new industry. Then came a piece of legislation that would change everything, the Air Commerce Act of 1926. This shifted the responsibility for regulating air traffic from the Post Office to the Department of Commerce. It established the fundamental rules of the skies, pilot licensing, aircraft maintenance standards, and most important of all, federal funding for the development of airports. Aviation was taking off, quite literally, as a legitimate mode of transportation. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, the Works Progress Administration, WPA, stepped in to build hundreds of airfields as part of the New Deal. The goal was to stimulate the economy through job creation, and airport construction offered an ideal project. These WA-built airfields laid the groundwork for regional and municipal airports across the country. As World War II swept across the globe, the United States launched into a massive wave of airport construction. Unlike anything seen before, the military needed training bases, cargo hubs, and transport networks with thick concrete runways that could support the wear and tear of bigger and heavier airplanes, just like the B-17 and B-24 bombers. By the end of the war, the US had built over 900 new airfields. Many of them were turned over to civilian control in the post-war years, giving the commercial sector a massive boost. The Federal Airport Act of 1946 committed $500 million, a huge sum at the time, to build and expand civilian airports across the country. Notably, the first peacetime airport development program was justified explicitly by national defense needs. Leaders saw an expansive network as a strategic asset, ensuring the Military and Commerce Act could use the skies anywhere, anytime. Other countries certainly built airports too, but none on the scale of America. In Europe and Asia, nations focused more on interconnected rail lines and roadways for transportation. By contrast, America's geography and mindset favored air travel to shrink vast distances. The US is a huge country, and its policymakers bet that air mobility would integrate the nation more effectively than rails or highways alone. This bet definitely paid off. Having airports in virtually every region gave the US unmatched flexibility in moving people and goods quickly. In short, America's obsession with building airports was a deliberate strategy, a vision that rapid air connectivity would catalyze economic prosperity, logistical superiority, and even making it a global superpower. But unlike building roads, airport runways needed a lot more work, resources, and careful planning to ensure that the runway was almost perfectly smooth. Constructing an airport runway is a meticulous engineering process that involves building a robust robust, multi-layered structure designed to handle immense stress. It begins by heavily compacting the natural soil to create a stable foundation, known as the subgrade. On top of this, layers of crushed stone and gravel are added for strength and proper drainage. The final surface is paved with either durable concrete or flexible asphalt, many times reinforced with iron rebar spanning the length of the runway, and especially reinforcing the touchdown zones. Later, as technology advanced, grooves were carved into the cement to prevent hydroplaning and wet weather. To complete the runway, it is painted with precise white markings such as the center line, runway numbers, and equipped with a complex lighting system to safely guide pilots during takeoff and landing in all conditions. Those are called VASI or PAPI lights, runway and identifier lights or REILs, and the rabbit lights or approach lighting system or ALS. As airports began to evolve, so did also the airlines and the visionaries who shaped them. In the earliest days of commercial flights, passenger airlines relied heavily on flying boats due to the lack of developmental runways. These aircraft, like the Benoist 14, totally butchered that, and the Sikorsky models allowed carriers such as the St. Petersburg Tampa Airboat Line, Aeromarine Airways, and Pan American Airways to connect coastal cities via rivers and oceans. Water landings were seen as safer and more feasible at the time, and these early services offered relatively comfortable and reliable travel. But as aviation infrastructure grew and revolutionary aircraft like the Douglas DC-3 emerged in the 1930s, land planes gradually replaced flying boats, marking the beginning of a new era in commercial aviation. Visionaries like Juan Trippe of Pan Am Airlines were instrumental in expanding aviation's reach. Trippe dreamed of a future where international travel was routine, even when most Americans had never flown domestically. He championed the creation of international terminals and advocated for the development of long-range aircraft that required larger, more advanced airports. Similarly, C.R. Smith of American Airlines partnered with the aircraft designer Donald Douglas to create the DC-3, a game-changing plane that made passenger travel financially sustainable. Meanwhile, Lockheed engineer Kelly Johnson pushed the boundaries of aircraft design with innovations that drove military and government airports to modernize. Public figures like Amelia Earhart and Charles Lindbergh also played key roles in capturing the public imagination and helping to normalize the idea of commercial flight. As these innovators paved the way, new airlines began to emerge, some of which remain industry leaders today. Delta Airlines, founded in 1925, and United Airlines, launched in 1931, are still operating and connecting millions of travelers each year. Others, like the once mighty Pan Am and Trans World Airlines TWA, ultimately faded away from the skies despite their historic influence. Together, these individuals and companies didn't just build an industry, they built a vision of the future. To them, the airports weren't just infrastructure, they were the launch pads of a bold, connected world. While America may have pioneered the age of air travel, it hasn't exactly kept up. Many of the country's major airports, JFK, LAX, LaGuardia, O'Hare, were built in the 1950s and 1960s, designed for a different era of flights. Back then, terminals were cutting edge, built for propeller airplanes, a fraction of today's passenger load. Now, those same airports are overburdened, inefficient, and outdated. LaGuardia didn't even have a subway connection until recently, and navigating its terminals often feels like stepping into a poorly preserved time capsule. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is soaring ahead. In cities like Dubai and Singapore, airports are marvels of modern design, equipped with advanced technology, seamless transit, and a passenger experience that many American travelers can only dream of. While countries like China are building entire airports in under 5 years, the US can take nearly a decade to renovate a single terminal. Underfunding, aging infrastructure, and bureaucratic slowdowns have left America lagging behind, stuck in a holding pattern while the world moves forward. This is frustrating beyond belief. Something has to be done, and something is being done. The story of America's airports is far from over. In fact, a bold new chapter is just beginning. After decades of underinvested and aging infrastructure, a wave of airport modernization projects is sweeping across the country, finally, aiming to redefine how Americans experience air travel. These are not just cosmetic updates or temporary fixes. They're comprehensive redesigns focused on sustainability, technology, passenger flow, and resilience for a post-pandemic world, spearheaded by a mixture of local initiatives and federal infrastructure funding. These projects reflect a broader recognition that efficient, modern airports are essential to the economic growth, global competitiveness, and national connectivity of the world, and especially our country. They mark a shift in mindset from simply maintaining outdated facilities to reimagining what airports can and should be. Take Pittsburgh International Airport, for example, a former airline hub that is now undergoing a $1.4 billion transformation. The project includes a brand new terminal designed with lessons from the COVID-19 era in mind. More open space, touchless systems, and a strong emphasis on environmental sustainability. Meanwhile, in Texas, the city of Austin is expanding its airports to meet explosive population and tourism growth. Plans include a new concourse, solar-powered systems, and extended runways, features meant to accommodate the city's rapid rise as a tech and cultural destination. Farther west, Portland International Airport is leaning into the region's identity with a terminal overhaul that incorporates mass timber architecture, huge skylights, and public spaces designed to reflect the Pacific Northwest's natural beauty. Each of these projects is tailored to its city's unique needs and character, but they all share a common vision. Airports as welcoming, functional, and future-ready civic spaces. Even long-neglected facilities are being given a new life. New York's LaGuardia Airport, once infamous for its cramped, outdated terminals, has completed a major multi-billion-dollar facelift. Now featuring airy concourses, modern amenities, and vastly improved transit access, it's gone from being a national punchline to a winning design and service awards. And these upgrades aren't isolated cases. They're part of a broader, federally supported movement fueled by bipartisan infrastructure law, which has allocated billions for airport improvements nationwide. For the first time in decades, there is real momentum behind modernizing American air travel infrastructure. While the US may have been slow to adapt, the next generation of airports is finally taking off, ready to meet the needs and demands of the 21st century and restore America's status as a leader in global aviation. America's vast network of nearly 20,000 airports is more than just a collection of runways and terminals. It's a powerful symbol of vision, innovation, and determination. From humble grassy fields where pilots once guessed, prayed, and survived, to sprawling international hubs connecting continents, these airports have been essential in shaping America's rise as a global superpower. They reflect decades of strategic investment, driven by pioneers who saw beyond travel and understood that air connectivity fuels economic growth, national security, and the very fabric of modern life. Though many of these airports now face challenges of aging infrastructure and intense global competition, the story is far from over. Today, America is writing a new chapter. Across the country, ambitious modernization projects are transforming airports into a state-of-the-art gateways designed for the 21st century, blending technology, sustainability, and passenger experience. From Pittsburgh's billion-dollar rebuild to Austin's solar-powered expansion and Portland's eco-conscious redesign, these efforts are a promise that America is ready to reclaim its leadership in aviation. Even iconic airports like LaGuardia, once seen as outdated, are now models of innovation and resilience. This renaissance, supported by renewed federal funding and bold local vision, shows that America's airports remain vital engines of opportunity and connection. The runway ahead may be long, but it's clear the spirit that built this unmatched network of airports still soars, carrying America toward a future of renewed strength and global influence. So, airports like this are the lifelines of America, remote and isolated, yet vital to the economic engine that connects rural and urban and links our communities to the world and to each other.